Hey, today is Thursday, April the 4th. Hey, Chase, happy birthday.
Oh, thanks.
I'm glad you're here hanging out with us on staff. Normally, Adam and I do this discussion together, but today I get to hang out with Chase, not just because it's his birthday, but because yesterday Adam had surgery on his wrist and wasn't able to film this. We actually filmed this a day ahead of time, so technically it's Wednesday, filming for tomorrow,
Right.
But they know that.
Right.
But either way, happy Thursday. We're hoping you have a great day. And just like always, we're continuing through discussing through the Quest 52 questions that Mark Moore has for us, talking about how to, this week specifically, how to use our influence for the kingdom of God. The last couple weeks we've been talking about, out of John chapter 3, the life of Nicodemus, and then in John chapter 4, we've been talking about, this last week, the Samaritan woman. So I'm just going to ask these questions, and we are going to answer the best we can, because again, we hope that you're talking to people about these things. The whole point of discussing these things is to build relationships and to go deeper with Jesus together. Question 1. Other than Jesus, Chase, who would you say are some of the most influential people in history?
Honestly, Keenan, I think some of the most influential people in history are the people that we look at every single day. Like, I think that, on our news feeds or on our social media apps, whoever pops up, whoever we decide to follow, has a little bit of influence over our life. And so, a lot of times you see these social media influencers, right? That's what they call them, because what are they doing? They're influencing you.
Culture.
Right, and it's right there, it's a post, it's a like, it's a heart, it's a care emoji, it's whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But they have a level of influence because you allow them to... You follow them, right? You allow them to give advice, to allow them to show you their life for just a minute. And so I think that they have a ton of influence over our life. And in the last couple of years, the last decade or two, they've had a major influence on all of the people that we have.
Yeah. I would say for me, as I was thinking through this, I think it's a hard question to answer. And here's the reason for it is you could go either direction with this, and you may not like where I go with this, but I'm just gonna be honest with you. You have Jesus, who I would say is on the good side of history in influence, right? Because influence can be bad influence too, who had repercussions from what the things they did that really changed how we do things in the world. I wouldn't hold up saying that the Roman Empire was amazingly awesome at all times, but because of their immense history and the things they did with roads and the things they did with water, they really influenced actually a lot of our society today. Yeah. Going back in the last 100 years, on the bad side of influence, you have people like Hitler and Stalin. There's a reason we continue to talk about them. They did things that were abominable to God. They did things that were horrific, and we never want to do that, but they influence current history because of their past decisions. So I think those are the kinds of people, right? You can go back in American history, because again, I think it kind of depends on context where you are. There's reasons we talk about people like George Washington and Alexander Hamilton and Abraham Lincoln. There's specific leaders who kind of pop out as people who shaped history. So to me, those are some of the most influential people in history. But again, I think from your own perspective, depending on where you're watching this, you have people that have influenced you and your family in course of history.
Right, that's a good, if I could touch on that too.
Yeah.
Family is also super influential, and it's super, super important, right? The people who you surround yourself with, whether it be friends or family, they influence you, right? And so when we're talking about Jesus, obviously he's the greatest influencer because he was this perfect man and he's this perfect God. And so if we have anybody other than him influencing our lives, we could potentially go down that path of bad influence.
Yes.
Kind of like those people that you were talking about, maybe not to the same degree, but it's still a level of bad influence leads you down a bad path. And I think it's important also when we talk about influences that you surround yourself with the right people.
Yes. You work with our student ministry, and I think something I know I've told students before, but it's a reoccurring theme, is who you surround yourself with is who you become.
Oh yeah.
Right? And the same thing for in your life today, those people who you surround yourself with become the most influential people because you allow them to rub off on you. So be picky.
Right.
Be picky who you surround yourself with.
It's kind of like identity language too. Who you surround yourself with becomes, that's who you become. That's like your identity,
Yeah.
So
here's the second question for us. We hope you're wrestling through this and having some fun conversations too. Have you ever known someone who was severely overrated or underrated? Perhaps an athlete, business person, or leader. Chase, I would love your hot take on this, because I heard you had a hot take. You didn't tell me what it was.
I didn't.
But I'm curious now, because we're recording this, it's either going to stay in or we're going to redo this. So let's go.
My hot take, I'm obviously not from Ohio, or I'm not from Missouri, I'm from Ohio, and I have an abundance of favorite athletes. Most of you probably are not from Ohio, and you probably don't agree with me, and so I'm not going to bring those athletes up. But honestly, this might be a little bit kind of like a hot take here. I think Michael Jordan is forever and always going to be better than LeBron James.
Amen. I actually agree with that.
I think that forever. I mean, two times back to back, two times he went back to back to back.
Yeah.
Right, with the same franchise.
Yeah, with the Bulls.
Yeah, you can't. That's not. LeBron hasn't done that.
Chase, I want to point something out. Since we have a lot of people watching this that are my age or older for the most part.
Yep.
Most people around here actually agree with you.
Yep.
It's your generation that is mistaken.
Yeah, I agree. And I definitely agree with you. I think my generation also doesn't have great basketball either. If we're going to talk about the NBA,
LeBron James.
There's no defense in the NBA right now.
And LeBron James. So that's the hot take, right? That's the hot take. No, I agree with you on that one. He's underrated to your generation. Right?
Oh, Michael Jordan?
Yeah, Michael Jordan. It's underrated to your generation. And in my opinion, from my generation and people older than me, I think those who watch sports, for example, they would feel like LeBron James is overrated.
Okay.
Right? On the same coin,
yeah,
right?
Kinda, yeah.
I would say answering this, something in my house we talk about a lot lately, and this is another hot take, okay? Taylor Swift.
Oh.
Taylor Swift is a huge thing she just made because of her Eras tour. She became a billionaire as of today.
Like, I'm not, I don't like Taylor Swift as much as some other people might like Taylor Swift, which might be controversial.
Well, so I was going to say that depending on who you talk to, a lot of people are like, Taylor Swift, she's way overrated. And then other people...
You have to give her credit, though.
But she is very, I think, underrated by a lot of people, too.
Of course.
Because to do what she does, she's a billionaire.
I know, today.
To do what she does, to influence people she influences, and not just in America, but cross-culturally in other cultures, whether you like what she does or not, she is an influencer.
She's got a lot of money.
She has a lot of money, but a lot of people willing to line up to give her lots of money. So Taylor Swift, I think, is another one of those. You can choose. Actually, that's a great question right now. Just because I'm curious and we like to dialogue, leave in the comments, people, when you're watching this. LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Taylor Swift. You can choose
any other female
artist. You know, you can write this down, and then maybe another business person or leader. Again, we don't want to turn the newsfeed into like bashing people. But just interesting, right? Because we don't want that.
Yeah, no.
But we want to talk though. We want to discuss because there are people that we allow to over-influence us.
Right.
And I think, again, it goes back to your perspective. There's certain people that are like, oh, they're overrated, but then someone else has said, like, I think they're underrated for X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. So actually, when you said that you had a controversial one, that was not as weird as I thought it was going to be. So I'm
thought we could have gone somewhere else, but I'm not going to go there.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
So here we go. Number 3, what was it about Nicodemus that made him so ineffective as a follower? And then in contrast, why was the Samaritan woman so influential?
I think I'll go with Nicodemus. Yeah. I think what's really interesting about Nicodemus' story in the Bible in John chapter 3, specifically when they're having that meeting, is that it's at night, right? Like, the king of the universe has agreed to sit down with you and talk to you, and you're kind of, if I put myself in Nicodemus' shoes, I'm kind of in, and I'm kind of like, I don't really know, right? And so I'm going to go have this conversation with the king of the universe, who I can see is, he's healing people, he's doing these many miracles, he's teaching, and it's just completely, like, not traditional, right? It's kind of upside down. That's how we kind of describe
the upside down kingdom,
right? And so if I'm having a sit-down conversation with him, and it leads to like an ineffective life afterwards, an ineffective life of following Jesus, there's got to be a heart posture there that's kind of wrong, I think, for Nicodemus. I think he really wants to, but I think he's also kind of stuck just a little bit. And there's more stories later on about Nicodemus in John that kind of help redeem his story, but all in all, in this moment, he's having a conversation with him at night. Which is for me, we're getting ready in the student ministry tonight. We're actually, not tonight.
Wednesday night before this.
We're talking about the light and dark.
Yeah.
Right? And how when you walk into a life with Jesus, you're walking into the light. Right?
Yeah.
But Nicodemus chose to walk in the darkness with Jesus, and it just sounds a little weird and not right. And so it's just that's ineffective.
Yeah.
If I could describe it in that way.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think if we're comparing and contrasting these two, you have on the one hand, if we're talking about biblical time, right? How much time is attributed to that person? Nicodemus has more time on paper.
Right.
You have all of John, or most of John chapter 3. You have bits and pieces of John chapter 7, and then bits and pieces of John chapter 19, right? Those are the 3 times we see Nicodemus pop up, where this woman only pops up 1 chapter, John chapter 4. And it's a majority of the chapter, but we never see her again. And so again, if I was just on the outside looking at this, I'd say, well, Nicodemus should have been more effective. He had more time in the scriptures, right? He had more time on paper. But I think the other things, comparing and contrasting, you have Nicodemus, who was towards the end of his life. He was had lived a certain way for all of his life. He had who had lots of influence and wealth and power and position, and he had everything to lose. Where you had this Samaritan woman met Jesus at a well at noon, and in the traditions of the people of that time, you don't go draw water at noon unless you're an outcast, unless you're not wanted. And it says that Jesus purposely went there and waited. He was waiting for this unwanted woman. And he talked to her about how the man that she was living with was not her husband, was actually just in fact another man. And she ran into town and saying, come in here and see from this man who has told me everything I've ever done, and could he be the Messiah? She had nothing to lose. And so she didn't care. And I think that's where it comes down to, is what we hold on to most, right? For Nicodemus, he had a lot, if he let go, to lose if he rolled the dice wrong. But for her, she had no dice to roll. So she's like, I'm going to run into town, tell people about what I think is the Messiah, because how it can't get much worse than this. The only way up, the only thing for me is up. And for Nicodemus, I think it was hard for him to choose, because if he didn't choose right, he could lose it all.
He could.
And I think that's a great question for us just to ponder with. Where are you? Where am I?
Yeah, like
in
how
those
much,
things?
How much are you holding on to? Are you willing to lose it all for him and run into whatever dark situation and just try and pull as much people to the light as possible?
Yeah. So it's a question to ponder. Just saying. It's not in here, but it's a question to ponder. Here's the last question we got for today. In your own estimation, what do you think would allow you to be more influential for Jesus? Well, maybe it isn't here. This is just almost like a point B to the way we just talked about,
I guess it is.
What are you holding on to? I think for me, that's what I have to wrestle through with. I think I get more influence for Jesus when I realize I have nothing to lose because of Jesus, right? Because I think I hold on to things I don't use my situations I've been put into. We all have spheres of influence. People that we bring in our life and we're in their life, that the places we go, we shop at certain shopping marts. So we go to grocery stores.
Shopping carts, grocery stores.
There we go.
There you go.
We shop at certain places though, right? We go to the same gas stations over again. We have these patterns we do, and we see the same people over and over again. We know our neighbors, we do these things, and we don't usually use those positions to talk about Jesus. Because we feel like we have everything to lose. And I think for me, I have the same problem, and I have to every day, and you have to do this too, choose that I have really, at the end of the day, nothing to lose. I could lose friends, I could lose positions, I could lose power, but in the scope of eternity, I lose nothing, because I am choosing Jesus overall.
And I think, Keenan, you and I, both having served in student ministry before, kind of have an understanding that telling other people that I am a student pastor at a church isn't necessarily like saying I'm a starting NFL quarterback. Right? Like, it's not like the coolest job in the world. And so I think going into student ministry for me personally, it's like, okay, well, these kids, right, they have so much life ahead of them. Right? And right now they're just trying to figure out who they are, trying to figure out mainly their identity, how they're going to live their life. And for me, I don't have anything, like you, I don't have anything to lose, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the influence that I have, that I've been given by other people. Okay, I'm going to take it and I'm going to pass it on to the next generation of future leaders, future kids who are going to grow up and be these amazing, whatever they want to be, because we live in a country where you can go and choose what you want to do. And for me, I recognize this, right? I've got nothing to lose, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and I'm going to try my best to faithfully serve the church by teaching students, and that way whenever they go out and do whatever it is that they want to do, with a doctor, lawyer, football stars, or just local people doing things in the local context, like they can go do ministry that way. And I think it's, you know, for me, it's like once when you recognize that, you come to this position of, okay, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And then I'm going to also, in doing whatever it takes, teach others about Jesus.
Yeah.
Because I've got nothing else to lose.
I think I think you bring up a great example of students. Like, I think if you're watching this, you've been in this boat before. If you've ever worked with students, or if you have students in your own household, you will probably hear at some point, "This is the end of the world."
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh my goodness.
Like this certain situation, or if I do this wrong, my whole life ends. And a lot of us as adults laugh, right? Because we're like, it's not going to end.
Just wait till you have to pay taxes.
I mean, right? But there's more life to come. And this moment feels like you're going to lose everything. And it's easier for us looking back, helping students and kids realize, like, it's just a moment, but it's going to get better. And it's the same way when we talk about the Jesus stuff, right? When we talk about these things with Jesus, when we're choosing as adults, we feel that tension there. But what if I lose everything? And Jesus steps in and says, just like that student situation, this is just a moment. It's going to be better. It's going to be okay. We would love to wrestle through these questions, though, with you. And so leave some comments. And if you're on our Facebook group, leave some comments. If you're watching on YouTube, leave some comments. We'd love to talk to you about those things. If you're listening on our podcast, you can email us either Keenan at GoConnect. I almost said my old email. At GoConnect.church or Chase at GoConnect.church. And we would just love to wrestle through these things with you. But we would love for you to wrestle through these things.
Mm-hmm. Answer these questions too. If you need to go back and re-listen to the question, Keenan did a great job at reading them. Answer these in the comments because it's fun to, again, it's dialogue, it's discourse, right?
Yeah.
Just do it there and then have conversations and take it maybe even to the DMs if you need to, because it's kind of what we're all supposed to do, right?
We want to encourage each other to take next steps. Mm-hmm. And you can't do that if you're doing it all by yourself.
Right.
So I would love to pray for you, and then we're going to send you from this place. Lord in heaven, we thank you for today. And just for the amazing opportunity we have in Jesus to use our influence for your kingdom. To surrender ourselves to you and to recognize, like the words of Paul, it's not I, but Christ lives within me. This life I live is not for me, it's for Christ. And that's what we want to do for you too. May we be willing to let go of the things we hold on to and to cling solely to Jesus. Amen. Amen. Church would love to invite you back this Sunday at 8 o'clock, 9:30 or 11 to worship with us. Adam and I will be co-preaching. We're going to be talking about this topic of, is Christianity boring? And the sneak peek, it's not. We don't think it's boring. We think it's kind of awesome. And so we would love for you to join us at 8 o'clock, 9:30 or 11 this Sunday, or on demand at 9:30. You can bring people into your living rooms or into your spaces to worship God with you. Until we see each other again, you are sent. Have a great day.